University in Washington. Welcome to the Politics Hour starring Tom Sherwood. I'm Kojo Nandi. Tom Sherwood, he's our resident analyst. He's a reporter with NBC4 and a columnist with the current newspapers. If you've been listening for the past 5 minutes, you've heard from him already. So allow me to introduce our guest this hour, Kathy Lanier, the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. Chief Lanier, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Word is coming out now that it almost seems as if it's going to be for sure that President Obama and his family will be staying in the District of Columbia over the course of the next 2 years so that his younger daughter, Sasha, can finish high school. Is that something you'd be looking forward to, having to protect the president, even though he's become a private citizen? Are you looking for that kind of work?
Well, first of all, I love it that he said that because he's looking out for his kids. Parent first, I think, is a great thing. So, yeah, I'd love to have him as a resident in the district.
We just bubbled up back in January. Now I did some reporting on it about talking to some real estate agents who deal in the properties that cost $3 to $6 million, and there was some unanimity that maybe the Colorama neighborhood might be good. It's kind of closed in. It's got a lot of foreign embassy people there.
What makes you think that he's going to want to live in a $3 to $6 million community? He may not.
That's right. He might just want to live in a regular
in the
condo.
District of Columbia. That'll get you a studio, but that would be easy to get around, easy to downtown. You know, some people talked about City Center where Eric Holder lives, but they do want to have reasonable access to Sidwell Friends School, where she's going to school. So, but you obviously would have additional police responsibilities if there's the first president since Woodrow Wilson 100 years ago lives in the city. You'd have to have some additional responsibilities.
Yeah, there are quite a few protectees that live in Washington D.C. Not surprising. So, Secret Service has primary responsibility for protectees, designated protectees, but obviously, there are residents as well. So it's kind of a dual responsibility, but we welcome that. He's not going to be the first.
By the way, who's the first? The last was Woodrow Wilson.
Well, not to be the first dignitary living in our city. Yeah, we've got protectees all around the city.
I just want to see him register to vote here. Then I'll feel that he's moved here.
Okay.
Indeed, a lot of people are hoping that if he does decide to stay here, that he'll become an advocate for the District of Columbia, something he hasn't shown a great deal of passion for over the years. Is that something you think might happen? 800-433-8850.
I don't think so.
If you have questions or comments for Chief Lanier, that's the number 800-433-8850. Before we move on to specific questions for the team, Chief Tom, there were some developments in the off-again, on-again Pepco Exelon roller coaster merger here in Washington this week. Where the heck are we now?
Well, I just said the words Pepco Exelon at our staff meeting yesterday at 9:00, and every 20 faces in the room fell. What the heck is he going to say now about this thing? It's very confusing for the listeners, I know, and the citizens.
Yep.
Public Service Commission has whipped us into this ridiculous frenzy. But basically where we stand now is that Mayor Bowser, the People's Council, Sandra Malibu-Fry, the Attorney General, DC Water, and which is like 4 of the 9 parties that have to agree to this Pepco Exelon merger. So they don't like the deal proposed by Commissioner Fort. So we don't know. The Pepco Exelon Corporation, which is the big foot in this, had said that if we didn't have an agreement by March 4th today, it would drop out of the deal. It had major repercussions in other states too. It said today, though, no, we're gonna give it a little more time. The Public Service Commission has said all these parties have to agree to this merger and the new details by March 11th, which is a week from today. And we'll have to see what happens. It's up to Pepco and Exelon to come back to the Public Service Commission and say what they will do to meet the conditions.
Without offering an opinion one way or the other, do you really think this is going to be settled 1 week from today on March 11th? I hope it is.
Well, I don't know, in fact, that it will be, but I do think that we are arguing about, over this $7 billion deal, that we are basically arguing about the shape of the frosting on the cake. And the 25 million here and 50 million there, and this kinds of money sound like a lot, and it means a lot, as the People's Council says. It means a lot to the ratepayers who may get $50 or $60 a month in savings for several years. But it's really a small part of this huge regional power consolidation in New Jersey and Maryland parts of Virginia and Delaware. And so I will be stunned if this deal falls apart at this late date, but I'm told that it could.
If this deal falls apart at this late date, Tom Sherwood says he will be stunned. It takes a lot to stun Tom Sherwood, so we'll have to
I'm
see what
almost
happens.
stun-proof.
On to Chief Lanier. Earlier this week, Chief Lanier, the D.C. Council gave final approval to a comprehensive crime bill. The legislation takes what's been described as a health-based approach to addressing the roots of violent crime, with an emphasis on therapy, service coordination to combat the spread of violence, the implication being that this is preferable to incarceration. Can you talk about that and whether it's an approach that you support?
Well, obviously, I've said for a long time and made a significant portion of my testimony at my performance hearing last year that all of our successes of pushing down violent crime, and particularly homicide, over the past 6 or 7 years, really the next big push to reduce homicides even lower is going to require something other than police. We have a large responsibility in keeping people safe and driving down violence, but there are a lot of other opportunities to prevent violence long-term by intervening much, much sooner with different services, different agencies, different approaches. So it's not just a police matter. So I do support the health intervention. I think mental health issues are a huge issue in this country that we all have to deal with when you talk about violent crime. So yes, I think there's room for us to look at different options.
There was, when this bill was first introduced last fall, and even today, someone was talking to me about it, saying, "Why is the city going to pay people not to commit crimes?" And I said to them, as I understand this, is you go to people who may be vulnerable and subject to a crime, a life of crime, and you get them into programs where you can actually pay them something so they can be encouraged, have some money in their pockets, and learn something to do rather than trying to get them into programs that offer no money and then they drop out because they can't sustain themselves.
One of the things that
our
listeners may not be familiar with the provision that Tom is talking about is one of the provisions of the crime bill, and it would pay would-be offenders and victims to stay out of trouble.
So there's, right now, there is so many different options and opportunities for people that fit that category to get job training, GED training, all kinds of options. There's so many services available in the city right now, available for people to take opportunities to prepare themselves for to get a job. In fact, I have an ex-offender that works in my building. He started through Project Empowerment when he returned home. And he was he's working on building facility issues, maintenance. And I got to know this person. He was supposed to be gone after 6 or 8 weeks. It's a short-term thing. And I fought for him to get a full-time job. And he's been working there now for 8 years. He's one of the better employees in the building. So there's lots of opportunities for that all around the city. That can pay to help people get education and job training and be prepared.
It doesn't need to be in the crime bill.
I'm not sure it needs to be in a crime bill.
800-433-8850. What do you think about that provision in the crime bill that would pay would-be offenders and victims to stay out of trouble? Do you think it will be effective or not? Do you think, as Chief Lanier suggested, there are a variety of other programs that allow people to do that? We don't need one in the crime bill. 800-433-8850. You can send email to kojo@wamu.org or shoot us a tweet at Kojo Show.
The crime bill also asks you to keep statistics on stop and frisk, which is a flashpoint for a lot of people about whether police officers are harassing citizens or simply doing their job and trying to stop crime. What are you thinking about in terms of stop and frisk?
So we
jump out squads.
As you know, I've automated and brought more technology to MPD and the past several years. So we've automated everything. We do track our stop and frisk data now. In fact, we track it in much more detail than most law enforcement agencies do. We have actually require narrative data. We don't do a checkbox. Some of the stuff that he's put in that provision will take changes to the technology to gather different information. I'm not sure how helpful that will be, but that's not going to happen overnight either. Changing, records management systems and things like that takes some time for it to capture some information.
I know last fall, the Kenyon McDuffie, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, was grumbling that the mayor and you were not cooperating with him as he was putting this legislation together, that you had canceled meetings and that you weren't getting along. And I suspect you could.
I don't think he said we weren't getting along.
Where is it now? I didn't have a chance to call him this morning to check to see if he still felt that way. But have you guys had some more meetings? And even if you disagree on some policy issues, are you at least talking more? Or
I have a regular standing monthly meeting with Councilmember McDuffie, and I have had so since he took over as the head of Judiciary. There have been meetings that have been canceled, and there were meetings that we made, some that he canceled. As you know, sometimes where I am is not really predictable.
Well, you're in the middle of this in part because some of the politics is that he may run for mayor, that some people believe he's preparing himself to run for mayor. You work for Mayor Bowser, and you can't get into the politics of it, but that exists. I've heard it from both sides, including the mayor's office.
So, and I've had that discussion. I'm not going to get pulled into any political debates. He is the chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and as such, I will continue to meet with him and talk with him about public safety issues. But the mayor's my boss, and that's who I work for. And so, whatever the political aspirations or any of those other issues between those two really is none of my concern. So I just make sure that I don't get sucked into any of those discussions. My job here is to run the police department for Washington, D.C. I have no role in any political debates.
Are you saying that you're not announcing today that you plan to run for mayor of the district?
No,
See,
people have talked to her about that.
That's right. If I had any desire to get into politics, I surely would have taken it before now.
Well, there is some politics of this, and that is who runs the union. Delroy Burton, a sergeant who was pretty well liked by a lot of the officers, lost his I think in January, lost his bid to become the new continue as a FOP chairman, and he lost to Matthew Mahl, M-A-H-L, Matthew Mahl, Sergeant. He takes over, I think, April the 1st. Mm-hmm. He's down at the union headquarters today in a kind of a orientation meeting with Delroy Burton. The former person, Chris Bauman, who fought with you for a long time, has left the department. Delroy Burton is going back to patrol. You have said that this new person, Matthew Mahl, is going to, you'll be able to get along with him better because he won't just be complaining about everything you do.
Yeah.
How is that going to work out?
So there's just a difference. And I think Matt's approach is let's get some things done. Let's be positive. And there's more issues, broader issues for us to talk about, making sure that we have, good safety policies for our people, making sure our officers have all the tools they need to do their job and be safe. It was a negative drumbeat. And I would say my only issue, I like Delroy Burton very much. He's a nice person, and I used to work with him. So we were officers out in the field together. It's just that the old union leadership had a very negative drumbeat all the time. Kind of sky is falling. And Matt Mahl is certainly a glass half full kind of guy. He just wants to get the job done. He's a street cop. And I'm just so looking forward to working with somebody who's eager to talk about all the things that we can do to make this a better police department.
I do know some of the officers are still upset that they didn't get retroactive pay increases. They feel like they were cheated. I mean, just absolutely cheated.
Well, pay
At
is
the time
important.
people talk about public safety, they did not get the raises that they thought they were entitled to. You've had over 800 officers leave the force since January of 2014. You've talked about this
that's
turnover.
Not correct.
I think that's right. 817 since January 1st of 2014.
So the thing here
Big
is
turnover.
Of course, the police officers are upset about not getting retroactive pay, but at a time, first of all, I don't have any legal authority. I can't negotiate pay. I can fight to get them pay raises, and I try to do that. I did try to do that, but at the time when that contract had stalled for 4 years, it's set for 4 years. There was a grievance filed by the union in the ground rules stage of negotiations, and it stalled for 4 years. I had no control over that. When they filed that grievance, we could not go forward. But they ended up getting pay raises that totaled 13.5% over 4 or 5 years at the end of the day, at a time when police officers all across the country were getting laid off or having pay cuts. But at the end of the day, I'm always going to fight for my cops to get a pay raise.
Our guest is Kathy Lanier, Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. If you have questions or comments, give us a call at 800-433-8850. Send email to kojo@wamu.org. We got an email from Patrick about juvenile crime. He says there's been a rash of violent crime committed by juveniles on Metro recently. Why does the chief continue to shield the identity of juvenile perpetrators of violent crime?
Well, it's the law. Yeah, because I don't want to go to jail. It is the law. I mean, a lot of people get frustrated with that. It's the law in most jurisdictions, not just the district. And I will say that I just saw again this morning the Metro Transit chief kind of promoting all the new cameras they've installed in their new crime camera center that they have there in the Metro. And it's, this juvenile issue that we deal with citywide, it comes and it goes, but it is a handful of kids that are getting involved in multiple incidents, and it just has recently been on the Metro. But I think that the camera initiative that he has there now is going to help us quite a bit, both on the Metro and outside.
There's not much to
Here's Mark Schindler. Mark Schindler, you're on the air. Mark Schindler is Executive Director of the Justice Policy Institute. Mark Schindler, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Kojo. Thanks for taking my call. And as you may recall, I also served with the Department of Youth Rehabilitation and appreciated the opportunity to work with the chief when I was in DC government. I just want to commend really appreciate the chief's comments on the bill, the crime bill that just passed, because as she said, we can't just have a law enforcement approach. And so I think the approach that we're now getting ready to take, where we use other strategies, what's being described as a public health strategy, is really what's going to get us to the next level of driving down violence even further in the city. The police just can't be expected to do it on their own. So I really appreciate the chief's comments this morning.
Okay,
thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much for your call, Mark. We also got a tweet from Abby who says, as victims of violent crime in the city, we give our full support to the crime bill and to Chief Lanier's efforts. I want to go on to talk about the crime lab, unless you wanted to.
I wanted to finish up on Metro, because Metro has a huge system. What is it, 110 miles of rail system, plus the buses that go everywhere. They have a very small force, under 400 officers authorized. I think there are about 30 or 40 under that. It seems to me that one of the ways you prevent crime rather than reacting to it is that you have officers present on the rail stations, at the bus depots, various places. I just say there's no presence of Metro police until you hear some incident of some, I think, silly bag check, which doesn't do much, or if there's an actual crime, then they come rushing in. I think they all want to do a good job, but it seems to me that they are woefully understaffed. And is there anything the police department can do to help with like you do at schools, and some schools where there are known kids to be in trouble? You put police officers out there every day when schools are out. So should there be more policing on this huge system, which is losing riders left and right?
I do agree. I agree. He needs more officers. Ron Pavlik does. And I said this before, the policing the Metro system is very different and more challenging in a lot of senses, that he's policing a jurisdiction that not only is 110 miles long, but it moves. Right. So it's a whole different policing strategy. And, there are a lot of different things you can do, but visible presence is a huge deterrence, and he just does not have the numbers.
All that talk we had in the 80s and the 90s and the year about get the officers from behind the desk onto the streets, let them be seen, let them be aware, let them know where the people that they're protecting. Seems to me would apply even doubly to Metro officers, so they'll be in the system and you can see them.
I think that's the part of the strategy he just announced the other day. They pushed 17 officers out of the it wasn't necessarily
a 5% increase
administrative
in
positions, but he's got to, I think he's trying to get everything he's got out there. He's even using kind of limited duty resources as extra eyes for them out there. So we are helping where we can. We are on a task force with them, so we're working jointly with Metro Transit and Prince George's County, and that's been very, very effective. So that partnership helps. So we are trying to help everywhere we can.
And very quickly, the streetcar just opened last Saturday, and that's it's free. Anyone can get on. Some of the people at the very upbeat ceremony for it were saying, well, they hope that the kids don't decide it's a joyride. They hope it doesn't become a home for homeless people. Do you have any policing involvement there, since it's run by the city?
So right now what we're doing is we have off-duty officers who are working overtime hours on that. So it's a reimbursable exchange between us and the Department of Transportation. And we haven't seen any real issues right now. So I think we're in pretty good shape. Have you ridden the Streetcar yet?
I went to the grand opening because I was excited about whether it's in fact going to be useful. And I was glad to see so many people there, but I have not yet ridden it.
I haven't yet either, but I want to.
I have not yet ridden the
Well, let's all go together.
It'd be fun.
As we discussed the last time we had you on, violent crime has spiked in the district as it has in many other U.S. cities. In 2015, the district saw a 54% increase in homicides. How are the first couple of months of 2016 looking?
So as of yesterday morning, we were at 18 homicides for the city, and that was lower than we were in 2014, 2 years ago. So I think,
but not lower than 2015.
Not lower than 2015, but that
Right.
just goes to show you that increases in homicides in particular will spike at different times and different. So you can't really measure day by day. You really have to look at a larger chunk of time. But so right now we are back down in the area of what were normal, the lower normal homicide trends that we had prior to the spike in homicides last year. The ironic thing is that violent crime overall was down. We had violent crime categories everywhere going down. And then just at the end of 2014, an 18% decrease in robberies as well. So the single violent crime we're struggling with, and I think most cities are struggling with, is homicide. And I've said over and over again, you know, these firearms with these high capacity magazines, all the way to the end of the year, we had less shootings and more people dying from being shot. That's a huge, that's a huge part of the challenges that we're facing.
Got to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue telling you about the first day of our membership campaign. And then when we come back again, we'll continue this conversation with Chief Lanier and Tom Sherwood. But if you'd like to join this conversation, call 800-433-8850 or go to our website, wamu.org, and you can join the conversation there. I'm Kojo Namdi.
Why do you listen to WAMU?
We're big fans of all the programming.
I think I am a much more informed, I feel brilliant every day riding around in my car, listening to Kojo and Diane Ream. So
I thought it was such an antiquated way to get your news, but I realize now that it's actually the perfect way to get your news.
Well, whatever the reason, make the reason you listen the reason you give. Go to WAMU.org and click on the donate button. And thanks.
It's the first day of our membership campaign where we're asking you to become a sustaining member by calling 800-248-8850 or making a secure contribution online at WAMU.org. We always expect more of the listeners to the Politics Hour because the listeners to the Politics Hour tend to be more involved not only in the politics but in the civic affairs of Washington and Maryland and Virginia. And because you are such regular listeners, you tend to be the most intense contributors. We're asking you to continue that tradition now. Call 800-248-8850 or go online at WAMU.org. Joining me in studio is managing producer Michael Martinez. Michael Martinez, do you have an update? Do we have a goal?
I do, Kojo. We have a goal this hour of $8,000, and the last I hear is that we have $6,500 to go. So cruise over to WAMU.org. That's the easiest place to do it. Or call 800-248-8850. But I would encourage you to go to the website. And like you said, the Politics Hour crowd, it's the best crowd. We hear from you every single week on this broadcast. And do I have permission to quote Tom Sherwood? Is that okay?
Yes.
So that Tom doesn't have to quote himself because he would do that. Tom likes to say that local Washington is only as good as the people active in it. And it's the very same for this station. We're only as good as you can make this station. We'll only be as good in the future as the support that you provide for us right now. So go to WAMU.org.
And if you don't go to WAMU.org and make a contribution now, we'll quote Tom Sherwood again. We know that's not something.
I have several quotes I could use at this moment.
If the pitches don't work, the
you
threats
don't
will.
want to happen. So call right now at 800-248-8850. As we say, make the reason that you're listening the reason you are giving. If the reason you are listening is because you want to know what's going on in the Washington region, in the DMV, because you want to hear what both elected and appointed leaders have to say, and even more importantly, that you appreciate the opportunity to talk back to them and to raise questions with them, then we're asking you to support the station that brings that to you. Go to WAMU.org and make a contribution, or call 800-248-8850.
This broadcast runs on a lot of things. It runs on Tom's attitude. It runs on you being a great all-around nice guy who people just want to hang out with all the time, Kojo. But this news operation isn't something that runs on bubblegum and chicken wire. And I'm looking right now at some of the numbers that it takes just to do local news on WAM year-round. It costs $1.1 million per year. That covers reporters, microphones, recording and editing tools, travel, computers, $3,000 per day. We can't improve the news coverage. We can't make WAMU as good as it can be without your help. But with your help, the sky is really the limit. And you can see just how far things have improved in the last couple of years, in the last 6 months even. Yesterday on the Kojo Show, you had Ali Schweitzer talking about music. You had Matt Bush talking about Maryland politics. These are reporters who are owning their beats, reporters who are bringing you news every single day. Let us know how much you value it. Go to WAMU.org or call 800-248-8850.
If you invest in WAMU with a $30 monthly sustainer donation, that's only about $1 a day. But that $1 a day, your support will go far in creating more news that matters, supporting our fellow citizens in need through a WAMU 75 meal pack through our collaboration with the Capital Area Food Bank. That's just a way of saying thank you. What is fundamental is that you are a listener to this broadcast, and a lot of listeners to this broadcast listen to WAMU 24/7. You wake up in the morning with Morning Edition, and you go to bed at night, stay awake as long as you can after all things considered. If you have not yet become a member, that means that you are getting this service for free. Of course, we offer it for free, but you should know that the service is not free to bring to you. We're asking you to help with those costs by becoming a member. Call 800-248-8850 or make your secure contribution online at WAMU.org.
Want to give a quick thank you to Jan in Annapolis. She has already given this cycle, and she said, having grown up and then worked in DC for 35 years, I like to keep up with my old hometown. Thank you, Jan. And, you know, one thing that I love about this show is the way that you and Tom take so much ownership over it and take your commitment to the city and to this area and what happens here so seriously and with so much passion. But for as much as we might think sometimes that the show belongs to Tom, the way that he bogarts the microphone, what's really cool about the station and what's really cool about this program is that this show belongs to you. The show belongs to the folks who call in and ask the chief tough questions. The show even belongs to the person who once told you to shut up on the air because he was so passionate about
one
the
of
issue.
the passionate activists over the Macmillan development.
Yes, and they are passionate indeed. But part of what comes with this show belonging to you is that we depend on you for your support. So cruise over to WAMU.org or call 800-248-8850.
And there are many of our listeners who would like to tell us exactly how to do business. We got an email from Sarah who said, make writing the Streetcar with Kojo and Tom a membership premium. That if in fact you make a contribution of a certain amount, even though neither Tom nor I have committed to this yet, we have been known to do frivolous things as membership premiums in the past, and you'll hear more about that later in this broadcast today. But if you become a member now, that's something we would definitely consider. It would depend
Maybe
on
we
your
could take
contribution.
over one car in the Streetcar. And
Yes, and Tom and I will have to decide how much that contribution will have to be. But it's only our way of encouraging you to become a member. The fundamental reason that we think you should become a member is because, well, you're listening right now. You listen on a regular basis. This is a service that you feel is important to you. And for most services that are important to you, your electricity, your internet and other services, you know there's a fee. Well, we don't charge you a fee for this service, but we ask you to become a member to help to bring the service to you. Call 800-248-8850 or make that contribution online at WAMU.org.
And just think about what you get with your support. Think about that return on your investment. Now, Tom, how much did the Streetcar cost? $200 million?
it's cost so far $220 million.
$200 million.
That's
It
to
took
bring it about. That's
more
not
time to
operate it.
build the Streetcar than it did for NASA to get us onto the moon. But that's
Well, I think that's an unfair comparison, but go ahead.
go back to this number, though, that it costs $1 million, $1.1 million for our entire local news operation at WAMU. And you get reporters like Patrick Madden who are covering police and law enforcement in the district. You get reporters like Michael Pope, who's breaking stories, who's investigating news in Richmond and throughout Northern Virginia. You get local news anchors like Tamika Smith, like Jonathan Wilson. These are people who are growing and who are really turning into the next generation of great public radio journalists with your support. And with your support, they're only going to get even better. So go over to WAMU.org right now or call 800-248-8850.
Remind us what our goal is this hour.
The goal this hour was $8,000, and we had about $6,500 to go 7 minutes ago. So I'm hoping we put a dent into that in the last couple of minutes.
Prove to them that the listeners of the Politics Hour are the best. Let us make that goal right now. Go to your phone, call 800-248-8850, or make your secure contribution online at WAMU.org. And thank you.
Support for WAMU 88.5 comes from Nova Labs, presenting the Nova Mini Maker Fair, a family-friendly showcase of invention, creativity, and resourcefulness in Reston, Virginia, Sunday, March 13th. Information at makerenova.com. And from Theater Alliance, presenting For Colored Girls and Word Becomes Flesh, exploring Black American life through poetry, movement, and storytelling, running in repertory through March 26. More at theateralliance.com.
Welcome back. Our guest is Kathy Lanier. She is the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. Tom Sherwood is our resident analyst. He's a reporter with NBC4 and a columnist with the current newspapers. You wanted to pick up where we left off, Tom, and we were talking about violent crime?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Metropolitan Police Department's on Crime Stats at a Glance website, which I think is a great public service for people to see it.
Oh, thank you.
It shows that homicides are only up 13% because there's been 18 compared to 16 at this time last year. But it does show that robbery, and that's what's the difference between robbery and burglary, just for people to know? Robbery is by force.
So robbery is
threat.
Well, robbery is if property is taken from your direct possession.
Right.
So if it's sitting on the table over there and you're sitting over here and somebody takes it, that's a theft.
Okay.
If they take it from your direct possession, that's a robbery.
Well,
And
robbery.
a burglary is of a premise of a home or a business.
Because your statistics show that as of now, robbery is up 40%. At this time last year, there were 400 robberies, and now there are 558. But burglary is down almost 20%. Motor vehicle theft is down 25%. But as you well know, it's the fear of crime for people that they might be robbed, that they might be assaulted, sex assaults are up, sex abuse. I'm not sure exactly what that all entails, but that's up 31%.
So the danger of looking at snapshots like that is and I said this to our crime reduction award winner last night at our crime briefing, the commander that won the overall crime reduction award, is that if you look at, people think of 2012 as the safest year in our history here because that's when we hit that record low number of homicides, 88. Right? 88. And if you compare robberies, where we are right now today compared to the same time last year, you're getting a small snapshot. Back in 2012, we've reduced violent crime double digits since then. The homicide number is what everybody focuses on. But 2 years ago, we dropped robbery 18% in a single year. So we're over 1,000 robberies less. So we're still at a point right now today where we have much less robberies than we did just 2 years ago. And that gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you go along. Now, I know that last February, we had a very, very good year for robbery. That was a good month for robberies in terms it was a very low number. But the last 30 days since we've had our task force out there, we've seen a dramatic drop off in the numbers. So in 30 days from now, we could see that number completely the other way, where we're down 5% on robbery. So it changes throughout the course of the year, and it changes with how quickly we can adapt to new crime patterns that come up. So we've got to be very, very quick at responding to new crime patterns.
The chancellor of the schools, Kaya Henderson, reacted rather angrily when there were complaints made, public complaints, that the ability of DC public school, high school students to ride for free on Metro was one of the reasons we've had such a spike in misbehavior and assaultive behavior by young juveniles on the Metro system. She said that's an unfair characterization of the students. But can you tell us who you said there are smaller groups of people who are committing a lot of these crimes. Who is committing the crime in Washington?
So I can't talk about Metro specific, but let me give you a comparison that will tell you why that statement that it's the students that are riding free are the problem. So if you look at our the analysis of our arrest data for the entire city last year, we've had year after year after year of decreases in crime and numbers of arrests. So I always say you're not effective as a police department unless you drive down crime and arrest. You got to have both go down. And we've been doing that. And so last year was one of just a couple of years where I saw adult arrests went down and juvenile arrests went up. And juvenile arrests were up just a little bit, I think 12 or 13% overall, but juvenile arrests for robbery were up close to 40%. So for whatever reason, there are times over the past 8 years that I've been looking very closely at arrest data that we will see times when juvenile crime drops very, very low. And then certain crimes we'll see juvenile arrests go way, way up. And for whatever reason, last year, juvenile arrest for robbery was up significantly and accounts for an increase, I think overall increase in juvenile arrests last year of 5%, which we haven't seen in a very long time. And overall arrest for adults was down 12%.
The political aspect of this is that it's whether people have a sense of safety in the city.
Surely.
Whether students or I know people who ride the metro in the morning and they don't like the loud kids. I said, are they loud and that's it? Or are they misbehaving? And sometimes it's just that they're so loud, but that's being a kid. But I do get the sense that people might worry about the sense of safety. Whether
they do, of course.
And that's what you have to address over the long haul, not these day-to-day
That's exactly
statistics.
right. That's exactly right. That's what we want to do is we want people to feel safe and know that they are safe.
Here's Rebecca in Washington, D.C. Rebecca, you are on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'm kind of shifting topic a bit to maybe a crime that's obviously not as severe as robbery or a violent crime, but something that I've observed a lot happening in the district is the use of cell phones while driving, be it by commuters or by Uber driver or Lyft drivers, and just the general increase in distracted driving that's going on. And I kind of wanted to ask Chief Lanier, what is the police force doing to kind of prevent or at least create consequences for this really dangerous behavior?
When you say the use of cell phones, do you mean people simply using cell phones even though they're hands-free use of the cell phone?
I mean texting while driving or maybe having headphones in while they're driving.
I think that horse has left the barn, but here's Chief Lanier.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have a hands-free device, it's legal. But I think everybody knows that when you're talking on a telephone, whether you're hands-free or not,
you're distracted.
You're distracted. Absolutely. We certainly are seeing the number of tickets that we issue for distracted driving going down because I think most people now do have hands-free devices or some sort of headset that they're using. And we've also seen traffic fatalities remain very, very low. But again, it is a problem that does from time to time get raised by members of the public, but we do enforce the law and there is a hefty ticket for it. And, if we see it, we'll write the tickets.
Well, and I believe the police were exempted from the law because I have seen some of your own officers using their cell phones while they're driving the vehicles,
sure.
which I'm not saying all of them, but some of them enough so that it's not a very good example.
Right. So they're exempted from the law, but our policy says they can't do it. But if you think about it, we use a police radio while we're driving. We're trained, our driver's training and requires us to pass a driver's training course while we're talking on a radio. And I think that's largely part of why we were exempted from the law.
I drive through the city every day on the way to and back from work. And I just saw someone the other day driving with his elbows. And he had his two hands up in front of his face.
How
his
else was
elbows
he
were
going to
holding
text?
the wheel. And I thought, where's the police when you need them? But maybe the fine should be higher, but then you're being unfair to lower income people or something. But I have seen, to my personal anecdotal experience, a lot more people who are holding the phones up in front of their faces, which I just find stupid to do.
Oh, yeah, texting is one thing that we ran a big campaign about 4 years ago about people texting while driving. That's just one of the most dangerous things. I mean, you're not just distracted, you're actually engaged in something other than driving.
All 2,800 DC patrol officers are scheduled to have body-worn cameras by this summer. How is that going? How do officers feel about it?
It is going great. We are at the big push now. We're 3 years into the project from when we first started. We have 400 cameras out now, but starting on March 15th, the kind of the real big push rollout will begin. So we'll be rolling out another 130 cameras on the 15th, another 150 cameras on the 29th, and then so we're rolling out to all 7 districts during the course of the next few months. And then right now, because we do have researchers that are examining every aspect of the impact of these cameras, right now we have control and experimental groups. Every district will be split in half. Half the officers will have them, half of them will not. This will be the first ever real rigorous study on impact of body-worn cameras.
How are the officers reacting?
They love them. They actually love them.
Well, when are we going to see how the council made it easier for the information to be made available to the public? The mayor had suggested a more restrictive approach to the video that's collected every day. It's a massive effort to keep this video and make it available to people who are involved. Are you comfortable with the way that's going to be handled going forward?
So far we're doing pretty well. We've made a decision that I think we've had overall 17 FOIA requests. I believe there are 3 of those that were some of the original requests that we're just kind of finalizing now. But once we get the redactions done, we're going to put them all up on YouTube. So we're not just going to give them to the person that's asking.
That's news. Is that news?
We're going to put them up so everybody can see them, because if we're going to release body-worn camera video and we have it redacted so people's privacy is protected, there's no reason why we can't make them available to everybody. So we're just going to put them right up.
How much time will lapse between there will be and the video happens and the time it gets on to the...
You're getting a little technical for me. It depends on how long it takes us for redactions. I mean, the redactions right now, we have bids in from a wide range of costs and time frames, how long people think it's going to take and what they think it's going to cost. So then we're going to need a little bit of time to see how long that's going to take. And then it all depends on how much video you want.
We're still getting the reports around the country. There's one just yesterday, an officer charged with murder for shooting a 55-year-old bike man. I can't now remember the city. It just happened. The officer's been charged with murder. How much are you still doing in your training to caution the officers that in terms of dealing with people, and Black Lives Matter, for example, is such an important issue that you don't have that kind of incident in this city?
Well, I mean, no matter what,
no matter who the person is, but
no matter what, training and policy on use of force and the tools that you have available to you has to constantly be reevaluated. You can't just stick with policy that's 15 and 20 years old. So, around the country, I think most major cities, all of us are looking at re-engineering and, a lot of the things around uses of force. You hear all the buzzwords, de-escalation and all of those other things that we're all kind of working on. But yeah, you have to modify. I mean, policing changes and the tools and technologies that we have changed over time, and you can't just stick with the same way of doing anything. So our training has changed some. Our policies are changing some. We're bringing in different tools that try and make everybody safer when interactions with the police. I mean, sanctity of human life is everybody's.
The Prince William officer who was shot on her first day, I wonder what you thought about that. She's trained. She's responding to a domestic situation, which, as you know, can be one of the most dangerous for an officer to get in the mix of. And she was shot on her first day. She went to the house responding to a 911 call. What were your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts, and I had an opportunity to make it out to the service and meet her mom and some other family members. My first thought was, I remember in the academy over and over and over again, we were taught that there's, domestic violence scenarios and traffic stops are the 2 most dangerous things that you do in law enforcement. And that hasn't changed in 26 years I've been doing this. But how tragic. I mean, a young woman, aeronautics degree, passionate about policing, in the military, want to serve her country, want to serve her community. The other officer that was shot is the son of a retired MPD member, serious injuries. It's just so tragic, but there's no way to predict when and where those tragedies are going to happen.
The use of Stingray technology is being challenged in court here in the district. For those who don't know what it is, Stingray technology mimics a cell tower, allows law enforcement to pick up data from cell phones in the area, which means police can track a targeted phone, but also has data from other phones that happen to be within range. So if Tom Sherwood happens to be making a call to his bookie at the same time that you're tracking someone else, it means that it'll pick up that call also. As in several other jurisdictions, DC police entered into an agreement with the FBI not to disclose any information concerning the wireless collection equipment and technology to the public, nor to courts, nor defense counsel without written approval. Since you cannot tell us where, when, and how Stingray is used here in the district, instead, can you tell us about the non-disclosure agreement and why information?
Well, let me
about
tell you what I
that-
can tell you, because we have asked that we be able to at least share what we can about the different technologies and tools that we use in policing. Obviously, if we share too much information, it doesn't become an effective tool anymore. So what I will tell you is that here in the district, we have to apply for a search warrant, which means it has to be reviewed by an independent prosecutor and judicial officer to approve that search warrant. And what we get from the use of that tool and technology is general locations of a device. That's what the tool is used for. Is it will allow us to get general information about the location of a device. There's a lot of misinformation about how this technology is used and what it can do, but that is what it's generally used for in law enforcement. If you have a person who's been kidnapped or a missing person, there are certain circumstances where the use of technology that can give me the location of a device, like your Find My Phone on your own app. That's what the general use of this is in law enforcement, and we do have a process to have it reviewed and transparently by a judicial officer.
Can you listen to Can you actually listen to the phone calls that are being made, not just know where the phone is?
No, that's not what this technology is used for.
Well,
I don't know if it even has that capability.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Just one quick thing.
Okay.
The inaugural is coming up in less than a year. You're already planning for that? Anything you can tell us about that?
We started a couple of months ago. We had a brief out this morning on where we are. Our subcommittees are up, and we are well underway, starting to book hotel
Will
rooms.
it make any difference if it's President Trump or President Clinton?
We are
or someone else.
We are already planning for an
It's a
inauguration
nonpartisan inaugural, right?
that has every possibility of being a big inauguration.
Kathy Lanier, she's the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Tom Sherwood is our resident analyst. He's a reporter with NBC4 and a columnist with the current newspapers. I'm Kojo Namdi.
So my name is Monica Bidet, and I'm a local writer. I write about food, fiction, and pretty much at this point, whatever interests me, which is a great place to be. I started listening to Kojo because he has this amazing voice. It was very soothing in the afternoon. I realized, wow, I'm actually learning a lot. I love that show because he doesn't shy away from difficult topics sometimes. But then, he talks to people like me, and we're all about fun and food, and so it kind of balances out. But it's terrific. It's a great way to just get information.
This is the first day of our membership campaign where we ask you to become a sustaining member of WAMU 88.5 by calling 800-248-8850 or making a secure contribution at WAMU.org. Producer Michael Martinez joins me now in studio. We had a goal. How close are we to making it?
The goal is $8,000. I hear we have $4,600 to go. So we need to go to WAMU.org. We need to call 800-248-8850. If you do like Alex did, he tweeted at us a few minutes ago, I donated to WAMU 88.5 already, received my 2015 tax return, got a new job, and just turned 25. Hashtag, I guess I'm an adult now. I think you're cool now. And Tom Sherwood, Kojo Namdi, you people are young at heart. And you've got the tattoos to prove it. So if you want to join them and doing the cool factor, go to WAMU.org.
Last membership campaign we had, Tom and I got our bodies all marked up because of a promise, call it a bet, a challenge that Tom Sherwood made and got me involved in.
Mary Che was involved.
Along with Councilmember Mary Che. I think he'd like to involve Chief Lanier right now, Tom. What's the issue? What's the challenge?
I don't know. She was asking about my tattoo earlier. Do you have a tattoo?
I do not. I asked to see yours, but
I'm not taking my shirt off on the radio.
I've got photos, Chief Lanier, I can show you.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we
last time we got a contribution of $3,000.
I am so specifically prohibited from fundraising of any kind.
Would you join us? Would you?
So be against the ethical rules of my position.
Would you come in and personally patrol the streetcar if we rode the streetcar?
I'll ride the streetcar with you. I want to ride the streetcar.
All right, let me get in here for 1 second. So WAMU.org is where you can make a contribution to make this happen, or not. But one thing that I would say about the whole tattoo issue, there was a piece.
It was your idea.
There was a piece of the reliable source that came out a few days after this happened that said Tom Sherwood and Kojo Namdi have officially made DC flag tattoos uncool now that older public radio hosts have them. I thought the exact opposite. I thought people who care this much about what they do for a living, who are hustling after this many years on the air because they're passionate about the city, they're passionate about the community they serve, that is the coolest thing possible. And the folks like Nick, who made a donation to us in that pledge drive, the folks like you who can make a contribution to the station right now at WAMU.org, I think that is the coolest thing anybody can possibly do. 800-248-8850.
Before this is all over, before she leaves her tenure as Metropolitan Police of the District, Chief of Police of the District of Columbia, we will coerce Chief Lanier into getting
She's coerce me into violating
She's
the
coming
rules
for 10
of
years.
my office.
I was going to ask you, are you going to hang around?
You
can quit and make a lot of money. You could make more money as a consultant than you could contribute to WAMU.
Then I wouldn't be prohibited from any
That's
ethical
right.
rules. Exactly right.
And you could get a
How long
tattoo.
do you plan staying on as the Metropolitan?
You know, I always say I have a very good job and I love my job and I love my city. And as long as I feel that way, I don't really have any desire to go anywhere else.
And we're not going anywhere either. But the only way you can make sure that we don't go anywhere is if you become a member of WAMU 88.5 right now by calling 800-248-8850 or making your secure contribution online at WAMU.org. Make the reason you listen the reason you give.
And I'll say that this also, it's not about survival. It's about making what we do better and as good as it possibly can be. And you see that in things that have happened at the station, things that have happened around town the last couple of months. There's been this really, really cool book talk series that's happened at Kramer Books. You were there a couple weeks ago interviewing an author. There was an event at Politics and Prose a couple of weeks ago where I saw my colleague Taylor Burney interviewing Elizabeth Strout of Olive Kittredge fame.
Yes.
And you see all of these folks who show up to these events because they're eager to interact with the station in real life, IRL and internet speak, which Tom would know about since he's on the tweets all the time. He's an honorary millennial. And we want to do more of that. We want to meet you where you are. We want to meet you online. We want to meet you in real life. And the more that you give right now, the better we'll be able to make good on that. 800-248-8850 or online at WAMU.org.
We're trying to come to you on a variety of platforms because we know now that people are listening on a variety of platforms. So we're going to do the blogging. We're going to do tweeting. We're on Facebook. Any place you need to get news and information from WAMU 88.5, we try to be there for you. We're asking you to be there for us so we can continue to bring you the information that you clearly appreciate. So become a member now. Call 800-248-8850 or make your secure contribution online at WAMU.org.
I want to thank Alexander in Fairfax, who just became a member at WAMU. He said, I've been living in Northern Virginia for 7 years now, and not a day passes where I don't enjoy WAMU's world-class programming. Now that I have graduated from college and have established myself, I want to give back to the great service that I enjoy. And you can join him by going to WAMU.org or by calling 800-248-8850. Alex, cool guy.
And Michael Martinez himself is a public radio baby. His parents were listening to public radio since he was a child, and now he is a member and an employee of public radio.
My parents are cooler than I am.
You want to follow him. Call 800-248-8850 or make your secure contribution online at WAMU.org. This is WAMU Washington, your listener-supported NPR news station from American University, in HD at 88.5 at WRAU 88.3 in Ocean City, at WYAU 89.5 in Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, and streaming at WAMU.org.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm